Leo Hart was having the kind of day where you accidentally prove aliens exist. Not that he knew it yet. Okay, you glorified fish tank, let's see what you can do. He tapped the side of the algae-filled container, squinting through his unfashionable prescription goggles. His basement lab, calling it a lab, was generous. It was more like a scientific hoarding situation, hummed with the sound of jury-rigged equipment. The university had kicked him out 3 months ago. Unorthodox methodologies, they'd said. Potential safety concerns, they'd added. Please stop sneaking into the biology department at night, they'd insisted. Minor details. Now he was reduced to conducting his biophysics research in a basement that smelled perpetually of ramen and regret. The contraption before him was his latest obsession, a modified hydroponic system designed to maximize oxygen production from specialized algae. He called it the O2-gasm. Sometimes his sense of humor was the only thing keeping him sane. Come on, photosynthesize, you magnificent bastards, he muttered, adjusting a dial. The green slime in the tank pulsed in response, or maybe that was just the faulty LED strips he'd salvaged from a dumpster behind the mall. 87 light-years away, approximately 7 minutes ago, the research vessel Inquiring Appendage had detected an anomalous energy signature from the third planet of an unremarkable yellow star. Captain Z.K. Lorth, we've identified a peculiar electromagnetic fluctuation, Science Officer Vex announced, her speech sacs inflating with the formal modulation of an important discovery. Captain Z.K. Lorth's optical membranes pulsed with mild interest. The Veldorians prided themselves on their scientific curiosity, which had driven their species to explore 27 star systems over 9 generations. Still, this was supposed to be a routine survey mission. Classification? The captain asked, 4 of his manipulator tendrils simultaneously adjusting the ship's trajectory. Unknown, but consistent with artificially generated fields. Primitive but intriguing. The captain's skin flushed into the orange bands that indicated curiosity. Worth investigating. It appears to be related to gaseous exchange processes, Vex said, her own skin rippling with scientific excitement. Specifically, molecular oxygen production. The entire bridge fell silent. Oxygen production was the cornerstone of Veldorian religion, philosophy, and society. Their bodies required 30 times the oxygen concentration of Earth mammals, and their civilization had developed around natural oxygen vents on their homeworld. The artificial creation of oxygen was their species' greatest achievement, the technology that had made space travel possible. Set course immediately, ordered the captain, his skin now a deep, reverent purple. Leo, oblivious to the fact that he had just become the focus of an advanced alien civilization's attention, was cursing eloquently as he dropped a wrench on his foot. Son of a subatomic particle. He hopped around, knocking into his workbench and sending a cascade of papers, half-eaten energy bars, and one particularly surprised pet goldfish in its bowl to the floor. The goldfish, Herbert, stared accusingly at Leo from the puddle on the concrete. Don't look at me like that. You were already living in subpar conditions, Leo muttered, carefully scooping Herbert into a coffee mug filled with cloudy water. Temporary accommodations, buddy. I promise. As he cleaned up the mess, he noticed the O2-gasm's readings had spiked. Interesting. He hadn't expected results this soon. The specialized cyanobacteria he'd genetically modified were producing oxygen at an unprecedented rate. Leo grinned. Take that, Professor Whitaker. Unrealistic expectations, my ass. He grabbed a notebook and started scribbling calculations, completely unaware that the Inquiring Appendage was now entering Earth's orbit, specifically looking for the source of what they believed to be a miraculous oxygen production breakthrough. The Veldorian ship deployed its stealth technology, not out of malice, but in accordance with their non-interference protocols for pre-spacefaring civilizations. 3 observation drones, each the size of a hummingbird, detached from the main vessel and began tracing the energy signature to a suburban neighborhood in Cleveland, Ohio. Sir, we've located the source, Vex reported, her voice registering confusion. It appears to be a primitive dwelling structure. Suboptimal for scientific advancement. Appearances can be deceptive, the captain reminded her. Remember the Caxtillion research outpost disguised as a waste disposal facility? Fair point, Vex conceded. Drone feed coming through now. The main view screen filled with images of Leo's basement. The Veldorians observed in fascinated silence as their target human moved frantically between equipment, talking to himself and occasionally to a small water-dwelling creature in a ceramic vessel. Is that his research assistant? Asked Junior Officer Plex, the youngest crew member. Unknown, Vex replied. Earth data indicates they keep other species as pets, though this practice seems inefficient. On the screen, Leo had switched to a different experiment. Having confirmed the algae's oxygen production, he was now setting up a simple electrolysis demonstration, splitting water into hydrogen and oxygen using electricity. Basic stuff, something he could do in his sleep, but he needed baseline measurements for comparison. He dipped 2 electrodes into a beaker of pond water and connected them to a battery. Observe, Herbert, he said to the goldfish, who continued to give him the cold shoulder. The miracle of high school chemistry. Small bubbles began forming on the electrodes, oxygen at one end, hydrogen at the other. On the inquiring appendage, alarms began blaring. Impossible, gasped Vex, her skin cycling rapidly through colors of shock, disbelief, and religious awe. He's creating oxygen from water. With primitive technology. That cannot be, the captain insisted, all 6 eye stalks fixed on the screen. Our civilization spent millennia developing oxygen synthesis. This mammal is doing it with, what is that device? Appears to be a simple electrical cell, Vex whispered. Maximum power output equivalent to 1/40th of a standard Veldorian food processor. The bridge erupted in chaos. Junior officers were consulting databases, senior researchers were running calculations, and the ship's philosopher was having what appeared to be an existential crisis in the corner. Captain, said the ship's cultural specialist gravely. This discovery fundamentally undermines the oxygen revelation doctrine. If primitive species can create breathable atmosphere with such ease, the implications for our society are profound. The captain's skin had gone gray, the color of deep thought. Perhaps we've misunderstood. We must observe further. Back in his basement, Leo yawned and scratched his stubble. The electrolysis experiment was proceeding exactly as expected, high school chemistry working as it should. Nothing groundbreaking. Well, Herbert, I think that's enough science for tonight, he said, standing and stretching. Tomorrow we'll check the algae growth and maybe, just maybe, those academic jackasses will finally see that sustainable oxygen production for long-term space habitation is possible. He flicked off the lights and trudged upstairs, leaving the equipment running. Herbert the goldfish blew a single bubble that rose to the surface of his coffee mug and popped. In orbit, the Veldorians watched in stunned silence. The human had casually walked away from what, on their world, would have been celebrated as the scientific achievement of a generation. He abandoned the experiment, Plex said in disbelief. As if it were nothing. No, Captain Zkalorth said, his voice filled with determination. He's testing it overnight. The true mark of a scientific genius, confidence in one's methods. Vex analysis tendrils twitched. Captain, I believe we need to initiate contact. This human may possess knowledge critical to our understanding of the universe. Agreed, the captain said, his skin shifting to the decisive blue of command. Prepare first contact protocols. We meet this oxygen-creating genius at dawn. And so it was that Leo Hart went to bed an unemployed, eccentric biophysicist, completely unaware that by morning, he would become Earth's first official ambassador to an oxygen-obsessed alien species who thought he was the most brilliant scientist in the galaxy. Herbert the goldfish, witnessing it all, kept his opinions to himself. Leo woke to a sound like a wet balloon being slowly twisted by an enthusiastic but inexperienced clown. He blinked at the ceiling, trying to determine if this was part of a dream or just another weird day in Cleveland. "Herbert," he mumbled, "if you've developed the ability to make balloon animals, I'm going to need more coffee before I can process that." The noise came again, followed by a gentle blue light pulsing under his bedroom door. Leo sat up, heart pounding. Either his algae experiment had gone catastrophically wrong, or someone was in his house. Considering his luck lately, probably both. He grabbed the nearest weapon-adjacent object. A replica lightsaber from Comic-Con, and crept downstairs. The blue light grew stronger as he approached the basement door. The weird balloon twisting sound had evolved into something that resembled speech, if speech were underwater and backwards. "If you're copper thieves," Leo called out, "I've already sold all my copper to pay rent. And if you're from the university, I'm legally allowed to be weird in my own basement." He flung open the door and froze. 3 floating creatures hovered around his workbench. They resembled octopuses that had decided to become jellyfish halfway through the evolutionary process, with translucent bodies that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Multiple tendrils extended from their central mass, delicately manipulating his equipment. One of them turned toward him. Where a face should be was instead a cluster of gently waving eye stalks. Leo's brain cycled through the possibilities. He was still dreaming. His algae had mutated and gained sentience. The LSD experiment from college had finally kicked in after a 15-year delay. Actual aliens. Option 4 seemed simultaneously the least and most plausible. Hello?" he tried. The aliens went completely still. Then all 3 changed color rapidly, cycling through electric blue to deep purple and back again. The largest one approached, its tendrils moving in complex patterns. "So MBLRP greetings PHLBT oxygen MMMZZZRK maker," came a voice that sounded like it was being translated through a blender filled with marbles. Leo stared. "You're speaking English." TTTZZZT Universal MMBBLLP Translator FFZZZT Crude but Schwupp Functional, the alien explained, or at least Leo thought that was the explanation. "Right." Leo nodded, lowering the lightsaber slightly. "And you're in my basement because..." The alien's skin rippled with colors. "We BRZZZPT observed your SKLRCH oxygen miracle." "My what now?" "The ZZZT extraction of FLRBT molecular oxygen from WRMMP monoxide." Leo blinked. "You mean, water electrolysis?" All 3 aliens changed to a vibrant pink. One made a sound like a deflating tire. "Is that FZZZT what your species MMBLRZZ calls this revolutionary WZZRT technology?" "Revolutionary?" Leo scratched his head. "It's literally high school chemistry. We've been doing it for over 200 years. The aliens froze again. Their colors drained to a pale gray. The largest one turned to the others and made a series of rapid bubbling sounds. Leo recognized scientific panic when he heard it, regardless of the species. "I'm Leo, by the way," he offered, deciding that formalities might help. "Human. Biophysicist. Currently unemployed." The lead alien regained some color. "I am BRZZT Captain ZK Lorth of the MMBLP research vessel Inquiring Appendage. These are FZZRT Science Officer Vex NSKLRCH Cultural Specialist Num." "Cool," Leo said, "because what else do you say when aliens introduce themselves in your basement? Can I offer you coffee? Though I'm not sure if you drink things or maybe absorb them through your skin." The alien named Vex moved toward Leo's workbench where the electrolysis setup was still running, tiny bubbles rising from both electrodes. "This device FZZZT produces breathable atmosphere MMBLRP from simple water?" Vex asked, eye stalks quivering with what might have been religious reverence. "Well, yeah, but it's super inefficient for life support," Leo explained. "My algae system is much better for that. That's what I was actually working on before you guys showed up." The aliens exchanged looks. At least, Leo assumed they were exchanging looks. Hard to tell with eye stalks. On our world BRZZT artificial oxygen synthesis requires SKLRCH facilities the size of your FZZRT cities, Captain ZK Lorth explained. This simple MMBLP technology would revolutionize WHRRP, our entire civilization. Leo's scientific curiosity kicked in. Wait, your planet doesn't have electrolysis. But you have spaceships. Our technology FZZT developed along different MMBLRP pathways, Vex explained. We harness SKLRCH gravitational energies and BRZZT quantum entanglement, but our WHRRP chemical sciences took alternate FZZRT routes. Fascinating, Leo whispered, his mind racing with the implications. Scientific convergent evolution, but with completely different branches of physics and chemistry taking precedence. Leo suddenly realized he was having a legitimate scientific discussion with aliens in his basement while wearing Star Wars pajama pants. Somehow, this felt perfectly appropriate. So, Leo ventured, you guys breathe oxygen too? We require SKLRCH 30 times your BRZZT concentration, Gnome explained, the cultural specialist's translator producing slightly clearer English. Oxygen is FZZRT sacred to us. The giver of MMBLRP life. The enabler of WHRRP thought. That tracks, Leo nodded. No oxygen, no aerobic respiration, no complex thought processes. Basic biology. The aliens vibrated with excitement. You speak of FZZRT foundational mysteries so MMBLRP casually, Vex marveled. Our philosophers spent SKLRCH millennia contemplating what UWHRRP call basic biology. Leo grinned. And I bet you guys know stuff about quantum gravity that would make our physicists weep with joy. Different evolutionary pathways, different scientific priorities. He glanced at Herbert, still swimming in his coffee mug. By the way, that's Herbert. He's not my research assistant, he's my pet. Though honestly, he judges me enough to qualify as a peer reviewer. The alien named Gnome approached Herbert's mug carefully. This creature FZZRT exists within dihydrogen monoxide MMBLRP constantly. Yep. Fish live in water. Extract oxygen through gills. All that jazz. The three aliens changed to a color Leo hadn't seen before, something between ultraviolet and existential crisis. Your planet has BRZZT beings that extract oxygen SKLRCH directly from water. Captain ZK Lortha's translator seemed to be glitching from emotion. Leo nodded. Most marine life does. It's how life on Earth started, in the oceans. We land animals evolved later. There was a moment of profound silence. Leo could almost hear alien minds being blown. Your world is FZZRT paradise, Gnome whispered. Oxygen everywhere. Leo laughed. Never thought of Earth that way, but sure. Oxygen-rich atmosphere, water full of dissolved O2, we're swimming in the stuff. Literally, in Herbert's case. Captain ZK Lortha's tendrils moved in what appeared to be an official gesture. Leo Hart BRZZT, would you consider sharing SKLRCH your oxygen technologies with FZZRT our civilization? This cultural exchange would MMBLRP benefit both our species. Leo leaned against his workbench, a slow smile spreading across his face. The university had kicked him out for unorthodox methodologies. Now aliens wanted his expertise. I'd be delighted, he said. On one condition. Name your FZZRT price, the captain replied immediately. I want to learn about your gravity manipulation and quantum entanglement technologies. Fair exchange of knowledge. The aliens changed to a bright, joyful yellow. Agreed, Captain ZK Lorth extended a tendril, which Leo shook carefully. It felt like gripping a firm water balloon. Excellent. Leo clapped his hands together. Let me get dressed and we'll get started. I'll show you my algae system, and you can tell me how your ships manipulate spacetime. As he turned to go upstairs, Leo paused. Also, is there any chance I could get a tour of your ship later? And maybe a letter of recommendation for the university? Dear Professor Whitaker, please reconsider Dr. Hart's funding, as he is now officially Earth's first alien technology exchange officer. That sort of thing. The aliens conferred among themselves with bubbling sounds. This is SKLRCH acceptable, the captain finally replied. Leo grinned. Herbert, we're going to space, he announced to the goldfish, who responded by blowing another perfectly round bubble that rose to the surface and popped. 3 weeks later, Professor Whitaker stared out her office window at the unusual shimmer in the air above the university quad. According to the hastily established Office of Extraterrestrial Affairs, that distortion marked the location of an invisible alien research vessel. On her desk sat a formal agreement for interspecies scientific cooperation, co-signed by Leo Hart, Human Representative, and Captain Z.K. Lorth, Veldorian Science Directorate. The document's first line read: This historic partnership begins with the exchange of oxygen production technologies from Earth and gravitational manipulation principles from Veldoria. Professor Whitaker sighed deeply as she signed the approval for Leo's new laboratory, an entire building, fully funded by the Veldorians. Her phone buzzed with a message from the dean: Is Hart really teaching aliens high school chemistry? She typed back, yes. And they're teaching him how to fold space-time. From his new lab, Leo waved at Professor Whitaker's window, perfectly aware she was watching. Beside him hovered Captain Z.K. Lorth, now wearing a modified environment suit that glowed slightly blue. On a special pedestal nearby, Herbert the goldfish swam in a technologically advanced tank that the Veldorians insisted was befitting his status as an oxygen extraction specialist. Leo held up a beaker of pond water. Today's lesson, photosynthesis. How plants turn sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide into oxygen and glucose. Or as I like to call it, making breathable air from sunshine and fizzy water. The assembled Veldorian scientists changed to their reverent purple color and leaned forward eagerly, recording devices ready. Leo smiled. Sometimes being kicked out of university was the best thing that could happen to a scientist. Especially when it led to teaching aliens how to breathe. Herbert, for his part, just kept swimming, utterly unimpressed by his new role in interplanetary diplomacy. Some things never changed, even when everything else in the universe did.